I'm sure you've heard of the meme phrase, locked in, to describe a sense of commitment or effort and determination to see something through. When you get a nasty ace in your favorite shooter, or completely downloaded the ball so to speak, and such feels effortless. There's something actually so profound and interesting in that state and its implications, which can be described more assuredly by the psychological theory of flow. If you haven't heard of it, flow theory can be described also as optimal experience theory, or a particular state in which an individual is fully immersed into the activity, which their capabilities upon distinct realizable goals can be quickly self-assessed and therefore reacted and built upon. The state itself can be described essentially as a concentrated state of mind in which time seems to flow differently. You are fully immersed and there are pretty much no distractions. You have an intuitive understanding of what it is, and frankly, I don't think I need to explain it in depth as pretty much everyone can utilize it. Either way, the state itself is quite vague, and like many things in the academic world, people don't agree on many aspects of what, why, or how, and it's difficult to explain succinctly. Yet, if I had to make an assertion, I think what makes games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and more recent releases like Silksong and the likes of Souls-like or general, broad, high difficulty games fantastic is that they intuitively draw upon your capabilities to draw out a flow state. Dare say it's all about flow. So in this video I wanted to recommend or advocate trying purportedly high difficulty games, as I think difficulty being unapproachable is misunderstood. I think the most important part of trying new games is to change your mindset if you aren't so into these kinds of games to begin with as well. Like many new experiences, the toughest is always the beginning. It's just a phase if you think about it, and I'd say that the biggest issue is simply learning the control scheme or onboarding process that happens mentally. But once you get it, so to speak, it's quite rewarding to tap into flow. It has really useful benefits applying it to other areas of your life other than video games, of course. Understandably, if you have a busy life, you probably wouldn't want to jump into something so demanding or excessive to end the day with, but I would argue for it if you're feeling a bit adventurous. I want to describe instead firstly how I take to flow. Although it's described as an optimal experience theory, and some of its requirements or conditions are described as being essential, such as a loss of sense of self-consciousness, increased feelings of control in the scenario, intense concentration, and awareness. I however don't agree with the idea that it should stretch skills and abilities, but shouldn't be excessively difficult. You can't really get into a meaningful flow state unless it actually challenges you beyond what you can do at the moment. Yet, also, to say a difficulty beyond you would not count for it doesn't make much sense, as you can certainly feel flow even if you're struggling. From a peer review from 2020, it notes that a sense of enjoyment is not even an agreed upon factor upon its examination across 42 publications about flow. So I think the original's idea use of the word optimal is a key descriptor that makes it fit a more narrow subject matter. Furthermore, flow is likely to be subject to different contextual states, such as physical activities or more mental ones, such as producing art, engaging in games, academic work. All these things probably elicit flow in a nuanced, specific way that likely can be distinguished from each other empirically, hence why enjoyment may not necessarily be a factor. When I played Sekiro Shadows Die Twice back at launch in 2019 for instance, I most certainly did not have the skills for it. I especially did not have the skills for the end bosses. Yet after giving up the game for months, I came back to it to beat the game. But firstly to defeat a particular optional boss, as I thought, enough is enough, I'm winning today. It took about an hour and a half of pure concentration while remembering the controls. Yet, what I found most interesting is that for a game that made me complain a lot previously, I consciously decided to take the losses purely as a way to improve without investing mental resources into being tilted by thinking that it's unfair or cheaply designed. And there it was, flow that I could consciously yet unconsciously was able to leverage. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but the standard final boss only took me about 5 or so tries to beat. So I was surprised to see that people complained that it was one of the hardest boss fights From Software has made overall. Sekiro is a perfect example of how you apply all the things that you've learned on your journey, and likely is the perfect embodiment of using flow. It is a funny thing too, as a particular individual in the game has popularized the one-liner of "hesitation is defeat," and has been interpreted in so many different ways. Yet, I don't think people have attributed this as flow theory or as an actual positive association with it as a declarative statement rather than a warning. It's not exactly hesitation the way of self-doubt or expressing unwillingness, or even the urge to relentlessly attack, but in the way in which you interface metaphorically with what you interact with that subconsciously affirms that there is no longer room for doubt in my mind. When you revert back from flow or cannot lean or tap into it, that is the hesitation. In other words, if you cannot draw the best from within, you cannot seek to win. There's something great in the capability for higher difficulty games, and video games overall, that encourages a completely removed environment essentially that pushes you to your absolute limit, which you can still fail spectacularly. Yet, being a game, you can keep trying of course, as the only thing really stopping you is you, barring physiological barriers of course. I take it as a means of being able to throw yourself into something and say, I want to try my absolute hardest at something and see how far my mentality can take me. When people describe Souls-like games as immersive gameplay, aside from the wonderful lore and background elements of course, I think they mean it in that flow sense when combat occurs. Of course, I'm not saying that you won't struggle, of course you will, practically everyone does. But what I'm saying is that difficulty itself shouldn't be a deterrent necessarily from playing a specific type of genre of game, or frankly anything else if you're interested enough. It's not necessarily about being difficult, but how you can push yourself to do things that you otherwise thought you could not do before. I wish people would understand that it's more like ascend limits, like this guy, and not get good as the phrase commonly goes. Getting good or expressing yourself under challenging circumstances is what is good. The latter phrase detracts from the point of fun being the journey itself, not the result or destination necessarily. With flow in mind, losing and game overs doesn't matter as you take it as an opportunity to learn, understand more, and apply it just as quickly. It's no longer about the difficulty, but how fun it is to execute without thinking too hard about it, and that's where the real fun begins. You recognize your goal, so to speak, and act upon it. And then you suddenly start experimenting, and for games that allow for it, such as Devil May Cry, it takes on a whole new expansive dimension in which you reach something beyond. It's partially the reason why videos about challenges or speedruns are so alluring. Your mirror neurons can feel the way the players interact with how the decisions made in runs and promote a similar sense of response as if you're playing it yourself. It is so deeply immersive and flow in its own sense when you can relate. I always feel hyped up after watching cool montages and stuff like that, and it inspires me to try a little bit harder too. Also, if you like spontaneous learning and application of new things, please play Devil May Cry 5. That game is one of my absolute favorite action games with an incredible amount of hidden things in it. I feel as if it's the only action game that's easily accessible and intuitively teaches you to reach towards more intricate mechanics naturally while scaling to very difficult stuff later on. The rule of cool is so pervasive that's the only game that if I didn't pull off something cool trying to do something, I actually don't feel like I've won and done myself a disservice. I would restart just to make it look cooler. The game actually gave me calluses from the odd ways I would manipulate my controller. It's that good. So I remember reading The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes, highly recommended by the way, which describes the history and politics, psychology, and physics of how it is that human beings were able to conceive and create something that was something by sheer will, which at many steps and turns was easily deemed as impossible. As a side note of something completely unrelated in the book, but was important enough for me, was how Rhodes distinguishes the differences in the thought processes, IQ, and whatever elements that separates the general mindset or approach of that of an experimentalist and that of a theorist, which the latter is far more impressive, of course. Do you know phenomena, so to speak, based on its interactions based on manipulating relations to inform a conclusion, or do you have a holistic view that compromises multiple elements in which you can infer how things work? You don't have to be a scientist to adopt such thinking, of course, as you likely already intuitively do so, no doubt about it. It's this level of scope and intention of bottom-up versus top-bottom thinking that gives flow theory an interest to me. Flow initially seems to me like how an experimentalist works by picking out patterns you see from working it out, which later gives you a theorist's idea of how you can presume other things work after absorbing enough information. It's always really in tandem, I think, and maybe a bit reductive to say it neatly fits into two camps. But regardless, it feels a very peculiar way in which these game developers devise challenges, so to speak, that sparks that special something. It's probably also why stuff like Souls games are so fervently recommended and defended by its fans. Regardless, yes, play difficult games, or ones that use difficulty to immediately teach you sharp and immediate yes and no's of the interactive basis of the title. I think some of the most excellent part of game design is how developers ease players into engaging on higher level or more complicated stuff over time. It feels rewarding to understand and extrapolate off it, so to speak. To me, that's probably the highest hallmark for excellent game design. You just know not only what to do, but how to do it better at a seemingly instinctive level as you get more familiar. It's as if the developers are having a subtle conversation with you as you reciprocate with increasing levels of intensity or scenarios. That right there is the allure of difficult games, I'd say. Flow is an expression of the human mind over matter in a way, and for something so natural, so to speak, it isn't often a conscious effort, which makes it all the more subtle. Some of the best moments I had in solving issues or problems was that seemingly unfettered moment when an answer came so serendipitously and neatly that it's as if you knew it would work right away. A simple change in mindset is really all you need sometimes. Right, that's it for me. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and subscribe too if you liked the video. By the way, being new to YouTube, I forgot you're supposed to actually show people the stuff you created if you want them to click or watch it. As well, it makes it easy to show it actually exists. So, if you're interested in playing what I'd say is a seriously awesome upcoming FPS game, check out my video on Sulfur. Or in a related topic of seeing things beyond surface implications or challenging yourself to discover more, how about my video about giving older games a chance? As usual, thanks for watching.